Rain lashed against the old Victorian house, each drop a tiny hammer against its decaying wood. The relentless downpour seemed to echo the house's own sorrow, as if the heavens themselves were mourning its forgotten past. The once grand structure, now a shadow of its former self, stood defiant against the elements, its creaking timbers groaning under the weight of years and neglect. Wind howled like a banshee, tearing at the ancient oaks that clawed at the night sky. The trees, gnarled and twisted with age, seemed to reach out with skeletal fingers, their branches swaying violently in the tempest. The howling wind carried with it whispers of forgotten tales and lost souls, a haunting symphony that sent shivers down the spine of anyone who dared to listen. Lightning split the darkness, momentarily illuminating the house, its windows like vacant eyes. Each flash revealed more of the house's eerie facade, casting long, sinister shadows that danced across the walls. The brief moments of illumination were like glimpses into another world, a world where the house still held its former glory, now lost to time and decay. Inside, shadows danced, cast by the flickering flames of a fireplace long gone cold. The once warm and inviting hearth now stood as a cold reminder of the life that once filled the house. The shadows seemed to have a life of their own, twisting and contorting in the dim light as if reenacting scenes from the past. The air inside was thick with the scent of mildew and dust, a testament to the years of abandonment. The storm had been raging for hours, a monstrous entity unto itself. The relentless fury of the elements seemed almost supernatural, as if the storm was a living, breathing creature intent on consuming everything in its path. The thunder roared like a beast, shaking the very foundations of the house, while the rain continued its relentless assault, each drop a reminder of the house's isolation and despair. It was July 15th, a date whispered amongst locals to be cursed. The stories had been passed down through generations, each one adding to the legend of the house and the events that transpired on this fateful night. Some said it was the anniversary of a great tragedy, while others believed it was a night when the spirits of the past returned to the world of the living. On this night, they said, the veil thinned between the world of the living and that of the dead. The boundary that separated the two realms became almost non-existent, allowing the spirits to cross over and walk among the living. It was a night of heightened senses and eerie occurrences, where the air was thick with the presence of those who had long since passed. And on this night, 4 friends stood before the house, their faces illuminated by the erratic flashes of lightning. They had heard the stories, the legends of the house and the cursed night of July 15th, but curiosity had drawn them here. As they stood at the threshold, the storm raging around them, they couldn't help but feel a sense of foreboding. The house seemed to beckon them, its darkened windows promising secrets and mysteries that had been buried for decades. With a mixture of fear and excitement, they took their first steps towards the unknown, unaware of the true horrors that awaited them within the walls of the old Victorian house.
Let's just get this over with, yeah?
You sure about this, Liam? This place gives me the creeps.
Oh, come on, Em. Don't be such a scaredy cat.
I agree with Maya. A little adventure never hurt anyone.
The old oak door groaned open, as if disturbed from a slumber it had no desire to break. The stench of damp earth and decay wafted out, assaulting their senses. Inside the house was a tomb, the air thick with the weight of forgotten memories and unspoken tragedies. Liam flicked on a flashlight, its beam cutting through the oppressive darkness like a fragile blade. Dust motes danced in the artificial light, swirling like tiny phantoms. A sudden creak from the floor above sent shivers down their spines.
Did you hear that?
They cautiously ventured deeper into the house, each step echoing in the oppressive silence. The air grew colder, a bone-chilling chill that seemed to emanate from the very walls themselves. A low hum, barely perceptible at first, began to vibrate through the air. It grew steadily in intensity, accompanied by a faint, sweet melody.
What is that sound?
As if in answer, a picture frame on the wall above the fireplace crashed to the ground, the glass shattering into a million pieces. The humming stopped abruptly, leaving an eerie silence in its wake. Their exploration led them to a grand library, its shelves lined with leather-bound books that seemed to absorb the meager light. The room was vast, with towering shelves that seemed to stretch endlessly into the shadows. Each book bound in rich leather whispered secrets of the past, their spines worn from the touch of countless hands over the centuries. The dim light barely penetrated the gloom, casting eerie shadows that danced across the floor. The scent of decaying paper and dust hung heavy in the air. It was a smell that spoke of age and neglect, of stories long forgotten and histories buried in time. The air was thick, almost tangible, as if the very atmosphere was saturated with the weight of the past. Every breath they took was filled with the musty aroma of ancient tomes and the faint, almost imperceptible scent of something more sinister lurking beneath.
As Liam ran his fingers along the spines, a book practically leaped from its place, falling open to a page yellowed with age. The sudden movement startled him, and he took a step back, his heart pounding in his chest. The book lay open on the floor, its pages crackling softly as if whispering secrets from another time. The yellowed paper was brittle and the ink had faded, but the words were still legible, telling a tale of sorrow and vengeance.
A blood-chilling illustration stared back at them, a grotesque figure with hollow eyes and a malevolent grin. The image was so vivid, so lifelike, that it seemed to leap off the page. The hollow eyes seemed to follow their every move, and the grin was twisted, filled with malice and cruelty. It was a face that promised pain and suffering, a visage that seemed to come straight from their darkest nightmares. Beneath it, scrawled in a spidery hand, were the words, "Beware the wrath of the scorned." The handwriting was jagged and uneven, as if written in a fit of rage or desperation. The words seemed to pulse with a dark energy, a warning that transcended time and space. It was a message meant to instill fear, to remind them that some forces should never be trifled with. The phrase echoed in their minds, a chilling reminder of the dangers that lurked within the library's walls. Fear, thick and suffocating, descended upon them. It was a palpable force wrapping around them like a shroud. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of the pages seemed amplified in the oppressive silence. Their breaths came in shallow gasps, and their hearts raced as the weight of the library's dark history pressed down on them. They could feel the presence of something unseen, something malevolent, watching them from the shadows. The terror was inescapable, a relentless force that threatened to consume them whole.
Panic seized Emily, her eyes wide with terror. "We need to leave, now!" she cried, her voice cracking.
Liam, his initial bravado replaced by a growing unease, nodded curtly. "She's right," he said, his voice tight. "This place, it's not right."
But as they turned to leave, the library door slammed shut with a resounding boom, plunging them into darkness. Their flashlight flickered, casting grotesque shadows that danced around them, before dying completely, leaving them swallowed by the suffocating blackness.
A cold, unseen hand brushed against my cheek and I screamed. The sound echoed through the silent house.
"The temperature's dropping. It's getting so hard to breathe."
Do you hear that? Whispers. They're coming from the walls.
"Daniel, where are you?" S5. "It was close, too close." S4.
They stumbled through the darkness, their hands outstretched, their hearts pounding against their ribs.
"I found the doorknob, but it won't budge. It's like something's holding it shut. Help me!"
Come on, we can do this.
Light from the hallway spilled into the room, momentarily blinding them, and then they saw him. S2, push harder. Daniel lay crumpled on the floor, his eyes wide with a terror that transcended death. His face was ashen, drained of all color, his lips contorted into a silent scream.
"Daniel, come on, stay with me!"
Liam rushed to his friend's side, his fingers searching for a pulse, a sign of life. But there was nothing. Daniel was gone.
"We have to go!"
Grief, sharp and piercing, tore through Liam, but there was no time for mourning. Not now, not while they were still trapped in this house. They fled the house, their hearts pounding in their chests, their breaths coming in ragged gasps. The terror that gripped them was unlike anything they had ever experienced before. Their screams were swallowed by the howling wind and driving rain. The storm seemed to conspire with the house, masking their cries for help. Behind them, the old Victorian house stood silhouetted against the storm clouds, an ominous presence that loomed over them. It was as if the house itself was alive, a malevolent entity that thrived on their fear. Its windows, like malevolent eyes, watched their every move, tracking their frantic escape. The house seemed to mock them, knowing that they would never truly be free of its grasp. They never spoke of that night again, But the memory of July 15th, the night they lost Daniel to the shadows of the old house on the hill, would forever haunt their waking nightmares. The shadows that took Daniel were not just figments of their imagination, they were real, tangible and terrifying. The events of that night replayed in their minds over and over, a relentless loop of horror that they could not escape. They were tormented by the memories, unable to find peace, and deep in their hearts they knew with a certainty that chilled them to the bone that they had not escaped unscathed. The house had taken something from them, something far more precious than they could have ever imagined. It had taken their sense of safety, their peace of mind, and their ability to trust the world around them. They were forever changed, marked by the house and its malevolent presence. The house had taken something from them, something they could never get back. They had lost a part of themselves that night, a part that they would never be able to reclaim. The lingering shadow of July 15th would follow them for the rest of their lives, a constant reminder of the horrors they had faced and the friend they had lost.